What is up, wrestling fans? And all rise for an all-new edition of the Parts Unknown podcast. I am, of course, the cleaner of the Ringside Intel, Jason Burgos, and with me, as always, is the Archer of Florida infamy, the one and only Jose Maldonado. Baby Blue, how are you doing today?
Living and breathing, man. I love how we're constantly evolving with each episode. You know what I mean? We're going to have all the bases covered as we get through all of this, man. Constantly evolving with this landscape. But doing good, brother. How you feeling?
I'm good. End of the week for me, the work week. So I'm always good for that and excited for that. I mean, and we have a lot to talk about, which I'm excited for, too. We got a lot of interesting topics and conversation for, and we'll just run down real quick. We're going to talk about a little bit. It's been a story because we're recording this the day after SmackDown. That's AJ Styles replicating the Mark Henry kind of fake retirement. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about some interesting stuff that's kind of fishy in weird ways between WWE and TNA, where we're starting to wonder there might be something far more in-depth in terms of this relationship that they're building that we even know. We're also going to talk about there's a lot of wrestlers that are kind of on the verge of becoming free agents or about to, or already have. There's four of them we're going to look at, and all big names, so it should be interesting. Also, we're going to talk about this Uncle Howdy kind of QR code teasing build thing, and if it's going on too long. Gable Steveson signs with Buffalo Bills after this WWE run just did nothing and went nowhere. We'll talk about Mercedes Moné winning. Mercedes Moné. I always mess up with that one. Her winning the TBS Championship at Double or Nothing, and then also we're going to talk about the Swerve Strickland has his opponent for his next title defense, which is I don't think a great choice for them, but we'll get to that shortly. First, let's talk about AJ Styles. If you didn't watch SmackDown yet, the whole show, I wouldn't say necessarily built around him, but very much focused on promoting his moment, where if you saw last week, he has this conversation with Nick Aldis. He's kind of pushed for a title fight. Nick Aldis said, look, I love you, man, but I can't do it. It just doesn't make sense. You lost your title match. You aren't at the head of the line. You got to go back to the line. So he comes this week. He's dressed in his dapper powder blue, looking like a Southern gentleman suit, and he's talking about he wants to make an announcement. They're all hinting throughout the show, it's going to be AJ retiring. He sees Cody in the back on the way to the ring. He whispers something in his ear. He sees the Good Brothers. He's like, you guys have been through it all with me. We go out there, we'll talk about it. And in the end, he tells Cody to come out, and it's very much, in a lot of ways, a replica of Mark Henry's infamous fake retirement, where he hit his finisher on John Cena and really jettisoned Mark Henry onto another level of his career. AJ's already, as far surpassed what Mark Henry has done, and but this is still, maybe this is a pivot point for him and a last great run in his career. So first thoughts I wanted to ask you, is it the right idea to copy and replicate something that's kind of come up? Iconic's too big, but a really key moment in a career, fun moment. Is it a good idea to do that? Is that kind of the part of what makes wrestling unique, that there are these instances where things are kind of copied and relived, and we know it's coming, but we still love it and it's still fun to see?
Yeah, AJ's got a lot left in the tank, you know what I mean? But yeah, I think it's more of the latter. We traded in the salmon jacket for the powder blue jacket, and it's interesting because it wasn't that long ago that Mark Henry. Well, I guess it was all things
ago. Time flies. It was.
Let me walk that back. Yeah, you know what I mean. It is crazy how time is a flat circle, but. Yeah, wrestling is unique in that way, like you mentioned, that you can really like replay the hits. And it's still well received. We've seen it, big angles get replayed, whether it's the ring breaking, whether it's like different storylines. You see a lot of that in NXT, honestly, now with Shawn Michaels at the helm. You can see a lot of the storylines that he kind of went through throughout his career, coming back with a new spin on it. It's interesting, and I don't really have a problem with it when it's this well received. And this seemed to be really well done, really well received. The writing was on the wall. It was super telegraphed. Everybody knew that this was not going to turn out well for Cody if he actually bit into this, and he did. Cody got Sting babyface syndrome and stuff like that. But like, it was really a really well done angle. As long as it's entertaining, I don't really got a problem with it. And what makes this super interesting is that although he wasn't retiring last night, this probably is the start of a kind of a retirement run for AJ. He's mentioned in the past where he doesn't necessarily want to keep going beyond what the super long time. So if this is the end of the end of the line for him, this is a real interesting way to go about it, to kind of introduce it into the storyline, and it could lead to big things. We talked about how we hoped he would be one of the first feuds for Cody, and that's the direction they went in, and it's been fantastic. And this is just another layer of that. So yeah, I didn't have a problem with the angle, and if this is going to be leading to one last big run for AJ, it's going to be an interesting ride, especially with one of the topics that we're going to get into later. With if TNA is in the mix, who knows what that could be for AJ? But I thought last night was super great, and I thought the angle was a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's hard to I mean, like you mentioned, it seems like the fan reaction has been extremely positive. It just shows you the kind of goodwill. I mean, we already know what the goodwill AJ had in France for the backlash event. But yeah, he's just a beloved figure. I mean, he's one of those classic guys that did so much outside WWE and then finally went to got his chance WWE has been successful. So it's hard to hate against it and stuff like that. And also just to note, I mean, this is an industry that goes back to the 50s and the 40s and on a major kind of TV, maybe seen nationally or bigger level since the 70s. It's hard to continue to do new stuff. So doing new a spin or replicas of previous things, I mean, I think it's all fair game, especially if you're entertained, and I think fans were entertained. But that begs the question then, since it was kind of sort of doing the same thing, who did it better? Now, Mark Henry gave his approval of it, of AJ's performance, but I gotta say, I don't think it was better than Mark Henry's. Nothing against AJ. No. Mark Henry shed tears, like, Mark Henry was at an age and a point of his career where it made sense. I think most of us like, no way, AJ's still really good. He just came back from injury. This makes no sense. So I think it worked better, and honestly, I like Mark's jacket better. No disrespect to the band of powder blue. I love blue. It's favorite color, but I like the salmon better. What do you think? Who did it better?
Getting to the fashion of it too, you know what I mean? But yeah, I agree with you. I don't think it was ever in doubt that this was gonna end the way it did last night. But with Mark Henry, it really felt legit. If it had really announced his retirement, it was at that point where it would have been believable. And I think that's what made it so memorable, is that everybody bit. And it's very hard to get fans to bite into a storyline, especially this day and age, with the modern fans are very tuned in to what's happening behind the scenes. So for an angle to actually go over the way it did with Mark Henry, it really is hard to top. And last night being a riff on it was super cool, but it couldn't top the original. Mark did it better.
And now you kind of mentioned it, it's a perfect transition to, if you're not a person that's following NXT, and I kind of loosely follow it, and this whole situation is kind of along with Ethan Page, who, again, I predicted he'd be a good guy to be in NXT about a month ago. Look what happened. But, not to toot my own horn or no. But, I mean, I'm feeling a need to want to watch NXT a little bit more, because if you missed it this past week, Jordan Grace, the current TNA Knockouts champion, shows up on NXT airwaves. We all saw her at the Royal Rumble. We all figured that was kind of a one-off fun deal like they did with Mickie James and TNA a few years back. But she shows up on NXT, challenges Roxanne Perez for her championship at Battleground, which is next weekend for when we're recording this. And there's been a lot of stories since then that this may not just be a one-off thing. We may see Jordan Grace a little bit more in NXT here, and we may even see NXT talent on TNA. But that's not really where the plot thickens. The plot now thickens because a story this week from Dave Meltzer points at, it makes things seem a little fishy, what's going on with TNA and WWE. He reported this week that there's been issues going on backstage at TNA. If you haven't been following it, TNA fired Scott D'Amore, who's kind of like the Paul Levesque of TNA, on an upward swing. He was a key part of this kind of upward swing there. They fired him in February. It was reported this week another key member of the creative team is out. They don't have events scheduled past early in August, and we're getting pretty close. We're in June now. And Dave Meltzer noted that the fact that this is happening in the backstage, and now all of a sudden they have this kind of relationship with WWE, is interesting. Adding on to that, Shawn Michaels did an interview this week hyping Battleground coming up. He talked to this network and his TV channel in Las Vegas, and he makes this quote. He says, "It's a very exciting time to be a wrestling fan, and we'll see how much of it culminates at Background on June 9. I'm sure a lot of things are going to be going on that night, so I wouldn't miss it." So him pointing to that night specifically, where Grace is facing Roxanne Perez, it seems funky. Now, there were reports that TNA was not going to sell when D'Amore left, because I know D'Amore tried to buy the company, but maybe they are now. Or maybe there's something else in there. Is there maybe a working relationship? This is different times. It's not just bite them up and throw them away. Maybe there's, Paul Levesque and Nick Khan seen the value of having working relationships, the Forbidden Door opening, a brand like TNA that's been around for a long time. What are your thoughts? Like, where do you think this is going? Because it seems much more than a little crossover for a month.
Yeah, there's so many interesting pieces to this, and to your point, they wouldn't be making teases like that. It's way too coincidental to have Jordan Grace, the Knockouts champ, showing up in NXT, and all of a sudden Shawn Michaels is teasing something else for Battleground and beyond. It's they really kind of go hand in hand. What's interesting about this whole scenario too is thinking back now, because when Scott D'Amore was dismissed and relieved of his duties, it was pretty much out of left field, especially with the momentum that TNA had been building, and then it came out like you mentioned that he was actually looking to buy TNA. So with this scenario now, I wonder if talks with WWE had been going back as far as that, even farther back, and with maybe D'Amore wasn't part of the plans, or him trying to buy it, maybe Anthem had already had talks with WWE about potentially selling to them, and they didn't want to kind of rock that boat or mess that up. So it's just food for thought. It's just speculation, but it's super interesting to think about. Having said that, I'm excited for it. You know what I mean? TNA is such an interesting entity, because they should have been dead like 10 times over by now, but yet here they are in probably the best position they've been in at least a decade. And people are genuinely excited for the talent. A lot of it had to do with Jordan Grace too. She went over super well in her appearance in the Rumble. Fans that were familiar with her work were also excited to see her, and fans that weren't saw how impressive she can be. And apparently she made a really great impression backstage, and they're happy to have her. So this lends to potential dream matches with other TNA talent, whether it's Joe Hendry, which would be super fun, or like Moose, cats like that. So it's a very interesting development. How much it ties into WWE is going to be super interesting to follow, whether it's in an official capacity or just working together. It's a fun development for sure.
And let me just add this too, because the other storylines or the rumors and speculation when D'Amore was fired was that he wanted to expand the payroll, and they were kind of doing that already. They were signing big names. They were trying to get more big names. Dolph Ziggler was a big name they brought in and stuff like that, and Anthem wasn't in favor of that. This would be a smart business move financially for Anthem. Let's say they're not selling, but let's say they want to work with WWE, and WWE has a big influence and they have a say, or maybe WWE wants to put someone that has on their creative team to in this working relationship that's a long-term thing, because instead of purchasing big free agents to add to your roster, you're spending no money by bringing in an NXT crossover, a WWE crossover. Reportedly, Jordan Grace is supposed to get like 6 figures for her appearances coming up that WWE is supposed to be paying for. So if WWE has this huge money and they're willing to maybe pay for talent to come over, that saves Anthem a lot of money while giving them an interesting product that's tied to the hottest brand in the world and is kind of working with them. So there's so many interesting, and also smart of them, like, if they were like, wait, we want to be main roster, then they would have known. It would have worked. But leaning into this NXT thing, the crossovers there, it'll possibly open the door for more things at WWE. And there's so many interesting things. I mean, you got Matt Hardy there, who, there's been rumbling about him going into WWE. Matt Hardy, who wouldn't want to see Moose pop up on there? Joe Hendry mentioned Sami Callihan, who's been around so long. It'd be interesting. If there was a time for him to show up, this would be now. Imagine a Sami Callihan and a Kevin Owens feud, or Sami Zayn feud. That'd be fantastic. And then the other direction, like you mentioned, imagine in this unique scenario, AJ shows up in TNA again after all these years. What a story that would be. The Good Brothers have a history there. Them going back, even Naomi had a history there for a little bit. There's so many interesting people going back and stars, and there's so many links between WWE's history and when TNA got big and the people that were there. Imagine like for storylines like Eric Bischoff showing up in TNA again. Like that kind of just playing to that negative history. There's so many options. So fascinating. It'll be interesting. It makes me want to watch NXT. I want to see where NXT is going, just because where this crossover stuff goes. I'll probably watch Battleground now. I wasn't planning to. I'll probably watch it now. Yeah. I want to see what they do with Ethan Page. It was a great signing. I think it was a great idea. And putting him right at the top again. My suggestion: just put me on the creative team, people.
The crystal ball is alive and well. Man.
Exactly. Now, wherever you're listening, wherever you're watching, please like, share, subscribe, comment. Give us your thoughts. What do you think on this whole thing with AJ replicating Mark Henry's infamous fake retirement? What do you think of the idea of TNA and WWE have a closer relationship, a purchase, some kind of influence going forward, the crossovers? But moving on from there, let's talk about people that might be free agents. It's been reported, we've kind of been hearing about Becky Lynch's contract was going to end. It was reported officially today she is now officially a free agent if she chooses to use it. There was a report this week that both Chad Gable's contract might be over next week, which is fascinating. Ricochet's contract might be ending soon. Also, Matt Hardy reported that Matt Hardy reported for his brother on his own podcast that Jeff Hardy's contract is supposed to end in mid-June. A lot of interesting free agents. The big question is, if any of them leave, and I think we can agree Becky Lynch is probably not going anywhere, but let's be devil's advocate. Let's play. If anybody does leave, where should they go? Where would it benefit them to actually leave the place they're at and go somewhere else?
If Becky is leaving, which I agree with you, I don't think she's going anywhere for a lot of reasons, backstage and on camera. I think AEW is the only spot that makes sense for her, and I think they would make a major play.
And that's a terrible spot to be.
Yeah, as we've seen,
she would be wasted.
Yeah, it's 100%. She would just be, worked into the fold, and it wouldn't move the needle for them. There's been way too much of a sample size with past WWE talents that we can kind of make that assumption now that Becky wouldn't do much for them, and it wouldn't do much for her. But that's the only place that really makes sense. I don't see her going to Japan with her family situation. Yeah. As awesome as that would be, I think AEW would make the most sense for her. Ricochet and Chad Gable are a little more interesting because they have a little more flexibility. Like somebody like Ricochet has a past in Japan that he has an incredible resume. So him going to New Japan and kind of making some waves over there would be fun to see. I could see him in AEW, but to your point, he would get lost even more so. He'd just be another entrant in the Casino Gauntlet at this point. But yeah. I think he stays put for the most part as well. Same thing with Chad Gable. The way they've been showcasing him, these are kind of boring responses, but I don't think there's going to be a lot of movement here. The way they've been showcasing Chad Gable has been the best that he's been showcased in his entire career. Fans of his, which I'm sure I know you're a big fan of his as well, have been waiting for him to get showcased like this for a long time, like the second coming of Kurt Angle, basically. The intensity has been wrapped up. The heel work has been tremendous. The character work has been tremendous. And the in-ring work is phenomenal. So I don't think they'd be going anywhere. But if they were, I could see Ricochet making waves in Japan. I could see Chad Gable making a little play in Japan, too. But I don't think AEW would do him any favors as well. So it's interesting to think where they can go. Jeff Hardy, man, he's beyond the point of getting big chances from big companies. He's let too many people down too many times. I can see him joining Matt in TNA, which would be interesting because that kind of backdoors him into WWE by proxy if this TNA is going to be a working relationship. But yeah, I don't think Jeff is going to be showcased anywhere big, and I think he's okay with that. I think at this point he just wants to kind of just do his own thing and be a nice name on the card, if nothing else.
Yeah, I agree. The one person I think that stands out that a move I think could benefit them is Ricochet. I just think, and we talked about this last week. Like it just feels like he's hit a bit of a ceiling. They I don't know why they just won't turn him heel. Like I originally thought maybe AEW would be a fit. I could see it. He would be a great signing for them because he's young. He's still in his prime. He's so super talented. He fits in with the kind of roster they have and the talent they have. But again, it's hard to just trust him right now. So you swayed me. I think New Japan would be fun. Like if a guy like a Will Ospreay can become the IWGP champion, Ricochet with his WWE kind of name and branding behind him, he's in his prime. He's already been there. He has a history. I think and their roster is kind of struggling because AEW has poached so many of their top guys now. They could really use him. He could really become a star. If Dolph Ziggler couldn't go over there and win a title, and Matt Riddle, like Ricochet would be a great person for them to make as a centerpiece for a while if they could, and throw all the money at him. I think Gable has developed a style that's a perfectly WWE style. It was just that he wasn't getting that kind of next level opportunity other than being kind of comic relief, and now he's getting it. And I just think there's no way if he was about to become a free agent, they would be keeping him on TV in a feature role like he just got this past week. So I think it's just he's gonna sign, or he already has it. It has been it hasn't gotten to the dirt sheets yet kind of thing, but. Yeah, I don't think he'd benefit from many places. Maybe New Japan. There's been the reports that MMA organization would be interested. I can say PFL maybe be interested, and then it's a chance to win $1 million. But that's still a grand leap for him too. For Becky, she's not going anywhere. I think if anything, I can maybe see her do like a little tour of Europe. Go back to Ireland, do some stuff in the UK. Like that'd be fun. Like some lower promotions that'd be willing to throw her some money, and that she can go compete in Europe and do those kind of things. That'd be interesting. If just for short term, just for fun's sake, like Sasha going to New Japan. Jeff, and you stole it from me. That's where I was gonna go. TNA. Like I did the story with him about WWE. I mean, with him possibly a free agent. Yeah, I just don't see with WWE, and I just think it works far better for TNA. And him popping up at Slammiversaries in July, that'd be a perfect big surprise for that event. And like we just talked about, there's a chance he can show up in WWE with Matt anyway, and just to restart that whole, the Hardy compound, Brother Nero stuff, you might as well. They didn't do any of it in AEW. They didn't touch it, which blew my mind. So just go to the place where it originated and started, and just do it with more control and more say than you'd ever get anywhere else. So I think that's the way to go. Speaking of debuts and things like that, I was a big fan of the Uncle Howdy QR code. I love that they were following in with Bray Wyatt, following that same tact, and I think they've done a great job with some of these videos. It's interesting. You got this missing the psychologist, the therapist, and that she showed up, but she's been altered and changed, and we all know the different characters. We're looking for the hints of who's supposed to be in this kind of wide six group. But man, it is going on too long. This is Bray already was here by now. This is going on really freaking long. And if you were one of the people that paused and rewound and paused and around to get that damn QR code on SmackDown this week, and you watch it, there was 12 videos. Not only is it going on too long, it's becoming too much work. I've got to sit there for 5 minutes to go through the videos. Okay, some of them were great. There's a few of them that are really well done, really cool stuff, but it's this is becoming too much work. We just want to see them already. We want to see the presentation. We want to see the look. Is WWE starting to kind of drop the ball now? And it's kind of it's kind of become an AEW thing where the story's just too long and the payoff just needs to happen. Are they kind of starting to bumble this a little bit?
Yeah, it really feels like they're starting to jump the shark. I mean, people are, their battery life is gonna, go away trying to scan all those QR codes and get those videos up and stuff like that. Yeah. It does feel like it's going on way too long. It's a fine line with vignettes and presentations and things like that, to where you build up anticipation. The anticipation has been there for a while. It's time to deliver. People are wondering what it's going to look like. Is it going to be well received or not? It's time to answer those questions. I would love for this to, as soon as Clash at the Castle, I would love for that to be, revealed. Just have it happen already. It does feel like it's been going on way too long, and it's a very dangerous line to walk, because this is something that can fall flat on their face with this. To follow in the footsteps of Bray Wyatt, who is so beloved, so creative, and was taken away so tragically. Even though this is his brother following in those footsteps, this can go really badly if it's not received well. And stringing people along for this long really does hurt their chances of it being well received. It's getting to the point where they really got to deliver something super special now to make all of this work feel worth it, and it's getting to a dangerous place. They really got to deliver something sooner rather than later.
Yeah, I mean, it's fun, but we're in a time where attention spans are short. You don't want that hype to kind of start hitting the other side of the curve and going down already. That might naturally happen just because they have so much to live up to. So you don't want the interest to die before they've even debut. Now it's about time. You don't want to get to that place. So yeah, I hope it's either soon or they start pulling back, because now they're going heavy. Even today they had Uncle Howdy took over the WWE website. They're going heavy with it now. So if it doesn't happen soon, we'll wait another 3-4 weeks. I mean, people are going to be just I don't care anymore. But moving on, talking about the idea of hype not delivered on, and hope and promise, is Gable Steveson. He we already knew he left. He was released or chose to leave WWE a few weeks ago. But now he decides he's going to go to the Buffalo Bills. Now, to give a little history, this is a man who is a national championship wrestler. I think a 2-time championship wrestler. He's won a gold medal. One of the great wrestlers in American wrestling history. This is a guy who UFC was flirting with not too long. Him and UFC and Bellator were talking to him, and it looked like he was going to go to MMA. He's looking at it. MMA, yep, the grand jump that so many great amateur wrestlers done. He didn't do it. Then he was like, I'm going to do wrestling again. And then he said, let me try WWE. So he goes to the Performance Center, been there a while, and all this time passed. He got to show up on major events for WWE, and nowhere. He left again. Now he's trying to go to football. When Brock did it, it's because he left WWE, so he didn't have options. He wanted to do something else, and eventually led to MMA. And anyway, now he's going to Buffalo Bills. Is this probably one of the most disappointing prospects in wrestling history? And does it kind of send a clear message that this thing is really hard, and unless you really like it, which it doesn't seem like he liked it at all, he just loves amateur wrestling, you can't do it. You gotta really be all in on this kind of thing.
Yeah, he's got to be up there in terms of one of the most high-profile busts that have ever tried this.
Him and Glacier.
Oh yeah, talk about stringing along anticipation too much. Vignettes that went on way too long. But man, Gable Steveson, one of the only people to actually make the crowd, Baron Corbin make a beloved crowd favorite. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And all love to Corbin. I love Corbin, but it feels like he's grasping at straws. And to your point, it highlights how this isn't for everybody. Kurt Angle made it seem easy, following a similar path. Brock Lesnar, same kind of thing. They had that innate charisma, and it was evident from a very early stage that they were built for this. And now he's kind of going, backwards into the Brock route, where Brock, went from amateur to professional wrestling, now trying the NFL. If Gable ends up giving MMA a try, who knows how that'll go for him. Wish him all the luck, but this is not going well for him in any aspect, this with the NFL, that's another thing, man. A lot of people like to throw themselves into the NFL like it's this easy club to get into, man. It's hard work. There's people that work their entire lives and their entire amateur lives and collegiate careers just trying to get a sniff of the NFL. So for him to think that he can walk in, we'll see how that goes. But in terms of professional wrestling, it was pretty. The biggest moment he's going to end up having was WrestleMania 38 when he made his little cameo. But beyond that, it was just all right. When is it gonna happen? When is he gonna debut? What's that gonna look like? And then when it happened, it was a complete disaster to the point there was really no coming back from that. You got to really be super special to overcome something like that. He didn't have the promo skills. He didn't have the charisma to overcome that. The crowd already made a decision on him. The writing was on the wall. So this is just another step of how badly it went for him in the world of professional wrestling.
Yeah, it was worse than Cain Velasquez. At least Cain Velasquez kind of had the Mexico, and he did some things there, and it got well received. But just to work, same kind of thing. Cain, same kind of personality. Fantastic wrestler, just no personality. Like that. That's you can't get into his injury doing that. But it's just silly. Like a guy who's kind of developing a reputation as a bit of a quitter on things other than wrestling. This is already going to be a fail. He's not going to make it to the NFL. He's not the level of athlete that Brock was. Brock was, I still put him as one of the greatest athletes, like LeBron James, Usain Bolt, I've ever seen in my life. And he even had, I think, a little bit of high school. I don't know if Gable Steveson has that too, but he couldn't do it. And there were scouts in the NFL that thought he had the ability to do it, but they wanted to send him back, I think, to the World Football League. Well, that's how back in the day was. I think the World League was still around, NFL Europe or something like that. Yeah, NFL Europe, I think it was. That they were going to send him there so he could develop his skills, and then maybe he had a chance, but it was going to take a while, and he wasn't going to make big money. Like Gabe Steveson, like if they even get to a point like he's worth it, I don't know where they're going to send him. Like, is he going to go to UFL? Probably not. Like, he's not going to make big money there. I did a story on for Sportsnet. Like, they don't get paid much there at all. They're not there for the money. They're there for the dreams to hopefully make it to the NFL. So, you're not going to make it to the NFL this year. Like, you're going to be on practice squad making that kind of money? Like, it's just stupid. Like, it's just silliness. You're not going to make it. So, you're just wasting your time. Like, he's one of the more frustrating, supreme athletes I've ever seen. Like, you know what, dude? Just go be a coach. Just go be a wrestling coach. It's unfortunate you're going to be a wrestling coach at like 26, but that's the kind of life you've set for yourself.
Yeah, he'd have been better off taking another swing at the Olympics, when he had that on the table. Like that would have been a much better route for him than what he's taking now.
Yeah. Going on from that, as always, please, wherever you're watching, wherever you're listening, like, share, subscribe. What are your thoughts on the Gable Steveson stuff? Is it just silliness? What are you thinking of some of these upcoming potential free agents? Are you hoping some of them move, jump ship, or whatever? Moving on to our last two topics. We talked a lot about Mercedes Moné last week and her GOAT stuff, and how she's not at all that at all, but hasn't had a match in AEW until this past week in a Double or Nothing. First match in AEW, wins the TBS Championship. Now, it's a different thing. TBS Championship's a little less established, so maybe, you're thinking, oh, she can help establish that. But still, you have Will Nightingale, who's one of the better talents on that show, one of the people on that show that they're not trying to be edgy and they're not trying to be Moxley and all this weird, they're trying to be the edgy hero. They're just true blue, white bread kind of hero, and people still absolutely love her. Very talented ring. They feed her to the money beast that is, Sasha Banks. In her first match, she loses the title. Sasha Banks becomes champion. Is that the right move? Like, is it business wise? Maybe to establish this TBS Championship. You do this. I don't know why they have two titles for a division that's kind of meh, and I just see the same people every week anyway. or just it's a kind of silly move, and in a way you're just kind of trashing your division by just having Miss Monet come in and just already beat your champion, one of your top stars.
Yeah, don't get me started on AEW having too many titles, for good lord. But, like, yeah, I wasn't a fan of the move. The writing was kind of on the wall.
Yeah.
She was going to come in a big way and make a big splash. And to your point, at least it wasn't the big title, the world title, the women's world title. It was more of a smaller one that she can help, I guess, put some shine on and things like that. But, I guess that the only saving grace, I'm going to try to look at the positives of this because, Lord knows, it hasn't gone well for Mercedes in AEW, but it made Willow look fantastic. Willow is somebody that a lot of fans are high on. I'm high on her, and the match was a terrific match. There's no question about that, and Willow's going to come out a lot stronger from this, and now she's going to pivot off to her feud with Statlander, which should be entertaining. And, this lines up Mercedes to, they brought in Stephanie Vauquer, and they're gonna throw down in Forbidden Door, so they're gonna run that back. That match was really well received when they ran it the first time over there in I think it was New Japan Strong. So now AEW is gonna present it. It's gonna be a showcase thing for Forbidden Door. So at the very least, they're giving her something interesting to do. Sky Blue got a good match out of it. She got featured, took the L, no surprise. But like Sky's been on the rise and having such a high profile match with some character build into it. That's some positives to look at. But beyond that, man, I mean, I just don't like Mercedes coming in and just strong arming herself into such a big position so soon. It doesn't feel like she's giving back. Maybe the time will come when that happens, but it really feels more of a platform for her to just showcase herself and get herself over, as opposed to some of the other talents that make it about everybody else. But we'll see how it goes. But I was not a big fan of the title change, but here we are.
I see, and it says a lot about where Mercedes is at this point. That I felt like the biggest takeaway was the Statlander turn on Nightingale. That was the bigger story. That's the thing I'm more interested in. I think, I mean, and I feel like it's the same. Like, I don't know how pumped it's like. Oh, who's Mercedes gonna fight next? I think people are more interested in the Statlander Nightingale story, how that plays out. That's more intriguing, which says a lot about this woman who's supposed to be this big for WWE, the GOAT of women's wrestling, and she was kind of her winning a title was secondary. And the two I told you, messaged you about this week. Good Lord, Tony Khan. What do you just have a wall of ideas of how you're going to set up new matches, and you just have this one you go through? How many times are we going to see a champion? They come out on a Dynamite or Collision, they win their match, they're looking tired, they're looking, whatever, and then some random person comes out to the top of the ramp, stands at the ramp, they have a staring contest, and that's how you set up a future match. Oh my God, going to the well with that is so lame. Like, the first few times, like, okay, that's different. He does it all the time, like, such lazy, like, you can't think of anything better. There's nothing better. Especially, and then also assuming that your audience knows who this young lady is. I'm sorry, I didn't know who it was. If they didn't put the thing in the background that says CMLL, I wouldn't have even known. Like, that's how you set up. Stranger comes out, stares at Mercedes, says nothing, and then we go to the next segment. Are you serious? Like, this is the dumbness of AEW sometimes, that he's just assuming they're all super fans like him and we all watch it. Are you serious? Do you know the world we live in? Do you know the 9-to-5 life gig economy that we live in? Nobody's got time for my man, the Archer of Infamy in Florida. He doesn't even watch movies because he's too busy watching TV shows. So let alone knowing all these things. But I mean, it just frustrating. But moving on to more AEW frustration. Swerve Strickland defends his title, beats Christian in Double Nothing. Of course, Will Ospreay has a title already. Okay, at least he's had a matches, but boy, they threw that title on Will Ospreay real quick. They did all that work to make Roderick Strong interesting and took a title off him already. Okay, I get it. Will Ospreay, you got tens of millions probably invested in Ospreay, so you got to make the most of it. Okay, we're going with the sports analogies. He came with the Jaguars, fine. So now he has the match. Ospreay ends up getting the title shot. Now, he's gonna face Swerve Strickland at Forbidden Door, right? That's where it's gonna be at.
Yeah.
Like, so you're gonna have Swerve Strickland. He's one of your hottest guys. You made the right decision to make him champion. Now you're gonna have him against your other hot babyface, who's the more expensive one, and you're gonna have him in a match. And if they go into this match and it just ends in DQ, this is the kind of stuff that people talk trash about with WWE. You have this big match that ends in DQ. So this is really a situation. They can't have this end no DQ or a DQ situation. They're really putting themselves in a spot here that makes no sense to me. Why would you put two of your hottest baby faces? It's like, oh, people cheer from. Just put them in a match. Like, what? Is there? And this is what CM Punk talked about. Where's the business? Where's the thinking here? You just had this guy win a title. Go have him defend the title. Why are you putting Swerve Strickland against one of your hottest baby faces? What does that do for him, Jose? Explain this to me. It's driving me crazy.
And it shows, you know what I mean? This is the effect that AEW has on their fan base, as evident right here, you know what I mean?
Oh, my head hurts.
Oh, man, I wish I could explain it to you in a way that makes sense, but I'm with you, brother, man. This is such a dumb decision for so many levels. For starters, one of the big ticket matches that they had down the pike, potentially, was Swerve Strickland versus Will Ospreay.
Yes.
You know, we mentioned on this podcast before, potentially something as big as All In, you know what I mean, being the main event with Will challenging over there. And they're going to go ahead and blow it at Forbidden Door, which is a big enough event, but that's the whole thing. Forbidden Door gives them an excuse to showcase so many other potential challengers. This is the one event, potentially two at Wrestle Dream, where you have talent from New Japan, where you can have a challenger that can take the L and not have any sweat off their back. Get Tomohiro Ishii up in there, you know, get Shooter. You know, get Shota Umino, give him a showcase
Ziggler,
match.
Riddle, these guys.
So many other options, and they went with Ospreay, and they're gonna blow this big ticket match so soon, and so telegraphed too. Because to your point, Ospreay also has a title. I doubt, one, that they're gonna give him two, and two, they're gonna have Swerve lose it so soon. We thought All In might have been too soon for him to lose. This is definitely too soon for him to lose. And the other thing that got to me was the way that they got him to this match. In the Casino Gauntlet match, which is a match type that I'm a fan of, you know, they've gotten me over with that match so far. But that's a perfect opportunity to get somebody else the win without having Ospreay take the loss. There's so many other people in that match that could have won the match. No sweat off of Ospreay. Swerve him up to Swerve and get him a really good match, and that would have been that. But they have Ospreay win it for no good reason, and now they're stuck in this situation where they got to get their way out of it. We got to see how the match plays out, but I don't see any scenario where this was going to look like a smart move. It didn't make any sense. And to your point, this is the frustration that a lot of fans from the outside looking in have with AEW when they go in this direction, and they're having to make sense of it on their own. We're having to make the booking make sense. And that's not the way it should be.
And it's true, because if you go the DQ route, it's going to be, oh my God, you know, from the half full arena. And, you know, it's like, okay, so you got to go with the definitive finish. What's the benefit for Swerve if he loses? You've just killed this run to feed him to Ospreay to make your guy. I guess it makes sense for Ospreay to be your guy, but you want to keep all these money-making options strong instead of just killing them. And if you make Ospreay lose, you built him up, have him champion, and you just make him lose anyway. Like, this is why they should not be having this match. It makes no sense. You nailed it. All in. Fine. That makes the most sense. In England, you know, you that's how you can maybe sell seats and stuff like that. That's business. That's the thinking. That's where you do it. So it's like you just brought Pac back. You finally have him on your content. You've been paying him for this long. You have him on your television content. Make it Pac. Yeah. Feed him Pac. That'll be a great match. This is what all you're catering your audience to these 5-star matches. You're making matches so you make the overlord of 5-star matches, Dave Meltzer, happy. So give him Pac and Swerve. That'll probably be a fun match, and then you could have Pac lose. Whatever. This is what he's there for. But it's like mind-boggling. Hate to end it on a frustrated note, but that's what happens when you have AEW as the last topic on your show these days. But as always, please like, share, subscribe. Let us know what you think of the show. Please listen to next time. As always, this is this episode of Parts Unknown Podcast on Ringside. And so I am Jason Burgos. He is Jose Maldonado. Until next time, everybody.